This week we are giving away this ARB EZ tire deflator and this round brog patch. Stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out how to win. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Ridge Bonfire, the official weekly update show of Blue Ridge Overland gear. We are all about overcoming the obstacles to getting outside. I'm CT.
I'm Dean.
And it's good to have you guys along. So Dean, what's new? What do we got going on?
So last week we dropped not one, not two, but 3 new Scottle cooking videos with family adventures overlanding. Also, make sure you check out last Friday's Instagram post, which had some photos from the new shop. It's up and running. So we just appreciate your patience. We did take ordering down for a couple days, but it should be live now. So you can place orders. Just please understand, we're still about 2 to 3 weeks out on production right now. So we appreciate your patience and understanding there in this time of transition.
So the BRoll spring patches are now gone. We just blew through all of those. But good news, summer is right around the corner. Summer starts on the 20th, and that's when we're gonna release the BRoll summer patches, so stay tuned for that.
So that wraps up what's new. Let's talk about some events. The big bomb that dropped last week, no Overland Expos for 2020, sad face. Kind of not surprised, but it is a big bomb that dropped. So no West, no Mountain West, no East. For those that are asking, the Virginia Rooftop Tent Rally is still on as of right now. Registration is not live yet. That'll go live in a couple weeks, just to kind of give ourselves a little bit of time to make sure everything's gonna go. But we think because it's a smaller event, we should be okay with it. So just bear with us with that. So I think that's it for the events. How about we go back to you, CT?
So here we go with video tips. We're gonna start in with the editing videos. I'm super excited for this, so here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to video tips. Today we're gonna talk about editing. So I'll give you my top 10 tips to edit videos like a pro. Number 1, organize your files. So the process of creating videos just creates a lot of computer files, and having a simple organizing scheme is crucial to your sanity. So first is folder structure. You want a system of folders that will ensure everything has a home. So first, just make a folder called video and then put the year. Here is where you're gonna make a folder for each of your projects. So this is what they look like. Your project folders should each have a month, and then the day, and then the name of the project. And here's quickly what my whole massive repository of projects looks like. But then they're organized by date, so you always know the current one you're working on is gonna be the bottom or very close to the bottom. Now inside of each project, you're gonna need 4 folders. First is footage, that's where all your footage goes. We'll get back to that in a second. Next is music, and then stills, if you're gonna be using photos in this video. And last is final output, and that's where you're gonna put the finished video when you're done. So last, let's go into the footage folder. And now you wanna make a folder for each of your memory cards coming off the camera. So card 1 could be your Canon M50. Card 2 was your drone, etc., etc. Now if it spans multiple days, just make a folder for each day. So day 1, put the date, and then inside of that have cards 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. Now it may seem like a ton of work at first, but it's actually quick, and it will save you so much time later. Everything has a home. You know exactly where to go to get stuff. Nothing ever gets lost. So we got our video shot. We've got it backed up on the computer. It's all organized. We're not gonna lose anything. Now it's time to edit. So what software do we use? So that brings me to number 2, choosing video software. CT, what program do you use to edit? I get asked this a lot. So the reality is it doesn't really matter very much. You don't look at like a beautiful house and say, oh, that builder must have had a really nice hammer, because all the different video software do essentially the same functions and have basically the same tools. But that said, I'll run through the popular ones and give you some pros and cons. So the top editing programs out there are Premiere Pro, iMovie, Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and LumaFusion on iOS. Now, with the exception of iMovie and LumaFusion, I've used each of these for at least a year each. And here's what I can tell you. So Premiere Pro costs $20 a month, works on Mac and Windows. It's a solid choice. It's full-featured and it's powerful. However, it's not the most intuitive. And personally, I found that unless I had 2 or 3 monitor screens, There was so many different windows and dialog boxes inside of Premiere that I didn't have place to put it all, and everything got really crowded, and I really didn't like that. Next is iMovie. It's $15 and it's Mac only. So iMovie is actually quite good. It's intuitive, it fits on a single screen really, really well. It has something called the magnetic timeline, which I love using. And it actually gives you full control over audio and music, which is awesome for a program that only costs $15. Next up is Final Cut Pro, which is $300 and is also Mac only. I love Final Cut Pro 10. It's basically the big brother to iMovie. It has a few more pro features and that kind of thing. It's also super intuitive. The layout is genius, and that magnetic timeline is superior to anything else out there. Also, browsing through your media is a dream. However, it is Mac only. So at the time of building my current computer, if I was gonna stick with Mac when I was upgrading from this laptop, that would have cost me about twice the money for the same performance I could get on Windows. So I switched back to Windows, but I wanted to find a new app, and that brought me to the next program, DaVinci Resolve, which is absolutely free and works on Mac and Windows. So first feature, it's free, right? That's amazing, and it's insanely powerful. In my opinion, DaVinci is roughly 60 to 70% as intuitive as Final Cut Pro 10. The interface is very well designed, and it works great on both single screens like laptops and dual monitor setups. Now, it does require a little bit more powerful computer to run it. Quick note, Resolve is the program I'm using right now to edit this video and all the BRoll videos. So next is a LumaFusion for iOS. Now, LumaFusion looks fantastic. It does have a full-on timeline with multiple tracks right on your iPhone or iPad. I've played around with it some. My biggest issue with it is that it is an all-touch interface, which is not really the program's fault. That's just because it's on iPhone or iPad. So working with files inside touch devices and all that is not the best, and it just didn't work great for my workflow. So my recommendations, if you're on Mac, use iMovie. It's easy, it's powerful, and you can always upgrade to Final Cut Pro 10 if you ever need to. If you're on Windows, use DaVinci Resolve. If it doesn't run well on your machine, try Premiere Pro. If you're an all iPhone and iPad person, check out LumaFusion. It is by far the best option out there on mobile. Now, of course, there's tons of other editing software out there, but I recommended these because they have a proven track record and because there's lots of good free tutorial videos online where you can learn and get up to speed. So now we're gonna fire up our editing program and get started. Quick note, all the stuff you're gonna see inside an editing app in this tutorial is in DaVinci Resolve because it's free and it's cross-platform and it's what I'm used to using. The first thing you're gonna need to do is to import those files and folders with all your media, your footage and music and stills and anything that you got going so far, import that into the program. Now these programs have their own sort of file structure, so sometimes you have to recreate those folders again as bins, but sometimes you can just drag the whole folder tree and it creates all those subfolders again for you. That brings me to number 3, lay down your A-roll first. Now what this means is searching through your footage and pulling out the A-roll, that is the talking bits and the main parts of your story, and arrange them down on your timeline. Don't touch your B-roll yet. Throwing in B-roll at this stage is only gonna bog you down. Now the first mistake people make here is that they'll put the entire card worth of footage, plop it down on the timeline, and then try to chop it down from there. This is not a good way to edit. Instead, you want to use what's called in and out points. You use the I and the O key for in and out on your keyboard to select a portion of each clip and then drag those little portions down onto the timeline. So we've plopped down the A-roll on the timeline. Now we have an extremely rough version of the video. Now it's time for number 4. Listen for the story. Once you have your A-roll put down, watch your video through and just listen. Sometimes turning off the screen helps focus on what's being said. Here's what you want to ask yourself. Does it make sense? Does it convey what you wanted it to convey? If someone was watching this that had no prior knowledge of you or your YouTube channels or what you did, would they be able to follow along? Now, believe me, this is a humbling and often painful process. Your first assembly cut will be way too long, and even for an editor, a completely unpolished video is hard to watch. But don't skip it. So now you've listened to your video and you know roughly what parts are good, what needs to go, what needs some polish. Now it's time to make some broad edits and bold choices with your video. before you get down to the little minutia and all the B-roll and all that other stuff. This is the time to see if the main story points of your video are working, and then rearrange stuff, throw stuff out, make corrections, add stuff in to make it work. Also, during this assembly and listening stage, you can be alert for when your video might need a montage break and go ahead and put some music there temporarily. So after you're reasonably happy with the assembly, cut, and the pacing, it's time to move on to number 5, add the B-roll second. So this is where you start to add the cutaways from the people talking to show what they're talking about. It's also where you go back in and fill in the montages, fill in the transitional parts, flesh out the scenes, place those wide shots to show each location, place those close-up shots to really show the details. Typically, I recommend placing the B-roll on the track above the A-roll. That way the B-roll is easier to move and rearrange as you need to. All right, guys, I didn't have time to fit all 10 of the tips into this episode, so tune in next week for 10 editing tips part 2. Oh my gosh. I'll see you guys then. And we're back.
It's like we know what we're doing with the editing and the clipping and the cutting and the pasting.
All right, so before we get to that weekly giveaway, let's read some of your comments. So here we go.
All right, so last week, in honor of our move, we asked for your moving horror stories. Colorado Life gets the Ingenuity Award for using a winch and a ladder to slide a couch up into a condo, and also an award for the Friends reference.
Yes! Oh, here we go. Pivot! Pivot! Pivot!
So definitely an interesting time. My personal favorite, though, has to be Jim Langford Photography on Instagram and the tale of Reggie's big adventure. Long story short, his 4-year-old daughter's hamster was packed and ready for prep for them to transport Reggie. But somehow the moving company picked up the box that Reggie was in, and poor Reggie went on a 2-day cross-country solo adventure all by himself. But fear not, though. Reggie went on to live a long, happy life and was well loved by the family, but they still tell the tale of Reggie's big adventure to this day. So I have to give the shout out to Reggie. So great, love it.
Good job, hamster. Thank you guys for all of your comments. Those were all awesome. So now it's time for us to pick a winner for last week's giveaway.
What did we give away, CT?
That was this headrest Velcro panel.
Headrest not included. The winner was Aiden Lash on Instagram. So we'll make sure to get that out to you quickly.
Congratulations, Layden. You don't get my headrest, but you do get the panel.
This week we are giving away an ARB Easy Deflator. If you've ever watched one of Chris Shantz's videos on Venture Forward, this is the same type that he uses. Basically removes the valve core, deflates, gives you a gauge here. You can use it to check pressure, you can use it to deflate. And of course, we're gonna throw in one of our patches. To win this little prize right here, we wanna know if there's any questions CT hasn't answered yet when it comes to videos and editing. So drop those questions down in the comments. Let us know if there's anything we haven't answered or anything you want clarification on. And just as a reminder, all of these short clips will be edited together into a longer series and posted on YouTube for you guys to watch later.
Yeah, so somebody actually, one of the interesting questions we got a while back that I didn't get to answer was somebody was asking about a bunch of other little action cams like the Sony, whatever this name is, and stuff like that. And the long and short of it was that none of those other random little cameras are a magic bullet. None of them give you a high-end look particularly. None of them are like the best for professional workflows. And so while a lot of them are interesting and they can be fun and you can use them in niche situations, none of them are like a replacement for a good solid DSLR or mirrorless camera. So that was the long and short of it on that. There's plenty of great little cameras out there, but none that I think replace a main A camera. So any questions you want me to cover and whatnot like that, leave it in a comment down below and you'll be entered to win the Easy Tire Deflator. So that wraps up the giveaway, and that brings us to what's next. So next Thursday is when we're gonna release our moving day video, and you get a little bit of behind the scenes of all the crazy spoilers. Our boss Matt might be a little bit of a hoarder, just saying. Glad you could join us around our campfire today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm CT.
I'm Dean.
And we'll see you next time.